Could saving your 401ks or IRAs actually be costing you more money in taxes than you want? That's what we're going to talk about today in our show. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. The show is for you if you want your money to work harder for you so you don't have to work so hard for money. You want to become work optional with enough passive income to work because you want to, not because you have to. All right, guys, so I'm bringing on Kenner French with us today. Now, Kenner is not just some tax professional or tax expert, guys. This is somebody who, if you guys ever watched Shark Tank, you know, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, who, by the way, is one of my favorite guys, even though he seems like a jerk. I actually like him. He actually told him that when he was using AI, back when nobody was using AI, he said this guy is using it Kenner is using it in a way that's an innovative way to help entrepreneurs save on taxes. And so he has helped many entrepreneurs save so much money in tax dollars, increasing their wealth, protecting their financial legacy so that they can, of course, create their own ripple effect in the lives as well. So I'm so excited because I know Kenner aligns with our mission and what we're here to do today. So Kenner, welcome to our show.
I'm excited. I'm glad I'm here because, man, you and I think exactly alike when it comes to saving people money and making people money. So this is going to be a good one.
I know. So I want to hear more of your background, man. Like, tell us more about, I mean, one, even got you into tax, but two, I want to hear about how you became one of these early adopters of AI.
I used to be the nerd. I used to talk about artificial intelligence, AI, and people used to laugh at me. It's going to go nowhere. It's going to be a trend, if anything. And now I look like the brilliant guy because I adopted AI. I looked at AI to lower taxes for entrepreneurs. I started it May 2010. Yes, wow. That was a long time ago. And why did I do that? Because I knew that one day it's going to be a good solution to lowering tax liability for entrepreneurs. Now, before that, well, I did the traditional route, went to undergrad, went to college at Harvard, went to, tried to, fail a little bit on Wall
just casually
Street.
Throwing there. I went to college at Harvard, just the usual undergrad.
That does sound bad. I didn't mean to say it like that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I did the normal route of, working for a big company, thinking that, I was going to, at one point, who knows, retire, with whatever, 30 years under my belt, working for the big company. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. By now, by the way, one of the people who wrote that, Sharon Lechter, is my podcast partner. But anyway, I thought that, I'm going to change the world. Instead of me working for a big company, I'm going to try to, go out and, be an entrepreneur. And then I started figuring out that taxes were kind of important. I didn't realize to the extent how important taxes were. So what I wanted to do was marry my interest in tax and be an entrepreneur and help other businesses to lower their tax liability or help other entrepreneurs to lower their tax liability. So here we are, 2006 to now. I've been running a company called vastsolutionsgroup.com, and we do tax, finance, and artificial intelligence to lower tax liability for entrepreneurs, and I'm having a blast doing it.
Now, obviously, if you're using artificial intelligence, people always think like, okay, but do I get real human experience too? How do you able to differentiate that?
Well, artificial intelligence has this thing called the sigma rate. Right now, it's about 14%, meaning truly mistakes. It's going to make mistakes 14% of the time. Well, to lower that number, why not involve a human, someone who can oversee the model? Our model is called Einstein. So what we try to do is put in the people's tax returns, see if we can lower the tax liability. We know there's going to be some mistakes, so you have a CPA or a tax attorney or a tax provider oversee it to try to lower the sigma rate, the issues, the mistakes, and then also try to lower the tax liability. So we marry the two, individuals with software, if you will.
Interesting. And how's it received? Like, what kind of client usually likes it the best?
Who likes it the best? Someone who's trying to lower their tax liability. They, have been working with a CPA or a tax provider who, doesn't prognosticate what the tax liability is going to be. At the same time, they're, doing their tax business. They're not paying attention to, lowering the tax liability. They're just doing the taxes. So the person who comes to us is someone who wants to lower the tax liability based on usually a tech model, that being Einstein, and at the same time have a little bit of hand holding along the way.
Gotcha. And tell us, I mean, is it usually entrepreneurs? It sounds like entrepreneurs, obviously, I know they get the biggest tax breaks of all. How about for some of our listeners that are, maybe they're just the typical W-2 employee, they've been stuffing money into the 401k and things like that because they don't really get any deductions. Do they have any hope?
They do have hope. That's the reason I'm on here, because I think even before talking to us here at vastsolutionsgroup.com, I think they need to talk to people like you who can map out solutions that can potentially lower increase their net worth, and also then hopefully involve us so we can help lower the tax liability. So it's kind of a two-pronged effort. And I think that's what really makes the most sense. Someone who's, let's say, a Google W-2 employee is doing pretty well, they reach out to someone like you, and then at the same time, they get us involved so we can lower the tax liability. So again, there's two things. Number one, they're reaching out to you. Hopefully you're going to increase their net worth with a blueprint. And then also by doing so, they're also going to involve us so we can help lower the tax liability, thereby increasing their net worth, hopefully exponentially.
I know our big focus, especially, is on cash flow, right? Like not just passive income, but even improving the cash flow situation. I know taxes is a big expense. I mean, one of the biggest expenses that many of our clients have to battle and face each and every day, month, year, you name it, right? It's always ever present. What's a way for someone who is in that situation? Like, what are some ways that they can actually lower their tax liability?
Well, look at products or services where they don't have to pay taxes on an annual basis.
Uh-huh.
Some people look at, as an example, I mean, I know you're not a big advocate, if you will, in certain circumstances of using, let's say, 401ks, but I think you're probably an advocate of like the Roth environment where you pay taxes now, but then you don't have to pay taxes if you're doing it correctly
Right.
down the road. I think that if you're doing kind of a process like that, something with respect to maybe a Roth environment, doing a conversion, if you will, from a traditional to a Roth, I think that makes sense. And or looking at insurance products in some cases where you don't have to pay taxes on an annual basis, or sometimes even when you pull money out, that sometimes makes a lot of sense. So two of those two solutions, I think, make a lot of sense for business owners, more so even than W-2 employees, but they also do work for W-2 employees as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about that Roth conversion a little bit, because that's something that I know a lot of people we talk to don't even realize is an option.
Mm.
But I know there's, the biggest thing they always fear is paying tax, right? So what are some ways people can look at doing the Roth conversion? I mean, especially with what you're seeing with now the new Trump tax plans in effect and everything else. I mean, is it sometimes good for people to do a Roth conversion now? Should they be waiting? What's the big benefit here?
All right. So let's talk. Let's talk first about, let's figure out what a Roth is. What is a Roth? If you really think about it, it's really made for people who are I would say, in a low tax environment. Would you agree?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably low tax environment. So usually those are younger people, or let's say people who aren't, doing a huge amount of W-2, or they're in a bad economic environment, let's just say in their business, let's say they're an employee, it's not, they're hurting for 1 year, gross revenue is down. Those
Yeah.
two things combined. So it might make sense to, invest in a Roth, because you're not going to be paying a bunch of money in taxes during that calendar year, as an example. Okay. So again, let's say younger people, someone who's not making a lot of W-2, or someone who's an entrepreneur and they're not killing it revenue wise, right?
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, what is a conversion? Let's say you have a bunch of money in a traditional IRA, individual retirement arrangement, and you have, let's just say, 100,000, and it's not a good tax year, or sorry, you're not paying a bunch of money in taxes because your revenue's down, or even going to the younger age group. So you're therefore paying your taxes that year because you're doing the conversion. You're moving it from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. So let's say it's $10,000 to be very simple. You're not paying a bunch of money in taxes because, as I mentioned, as an entrepreneur, let's say your revenue's down that year, your tax rate's down. It probably makes sense to do a conversion. Does that make sense? That's number one.
Sure.
But number two, the cool thing about that is next year you don't pay taxes on it, so it's tax-free growth. Let's say the next year it's tax-free growth, and let's say you take the money out when you're, let's say that 10,000 in pretend world is worth $1 million. You're really happy, right? Your portfolio is growing to $1 million, and you pull the money out. Do you pay taxes on it in a Roth tradition on an ongoing basis? No. When you pull the money out, do you pay taxes on it? The answer is no. So that is when it really ultimately makes sense, when you're doing a Roth or you're doing conversion, and you're in a low tax year. You're not paying a bunch of money in taxes down the road because you don't have to worry about it, because it's a Roth and it's conversion, versus someone who's, let's say, in a big tax environment. Maybe a Roth conversion wouldn't make sense depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of, it's like finding the fortune and the misfortune, because I know a lot more people I'm talking to lately either are they're usually not changing jobs as much as they're getting laid off or things like that starting to happen, especially those that are making higher incomes. And then they, of course, say they're like, okay, what do I do? Maybe I'm not even 59 and a half yet because again, there's those dumb, stupid rules they put on those, on the IRAs and whatnot. But they're saying, well, what can I do with this money? This is like maybe the biggest chunk of money I have. What do I do with it? Do I live on it? Do I convert it? Do I invest with it? What do I do? And I mean, that could be one of those opportunities where it could be a great time to convert to a Roth, correct?
Totally. I say at the end of every year, they should be talking to someone like you who knows about Roth conversions, who's an anti-financial advisor, who can walk them through that process every single year. Every single year, they should be talking to you because you might be able to find something that they would know, which can add value to them as it relates to, let's say, a Roth conversion, as an example.
Right. Exactly. And what's and now where does it fit in with like life insurance, for example? Because that has similar tax benefits to Roth, but it
Yep.
doesn't have like the income limitations. I know that's one thing a lot of our clients run into. They say, well, apparently I make too much money to do a Roth. Now I have to
Mm.
go through the long route of setting up an IRA, then converting it, to a Roth and all that stuff. What's your opinion from a tax standpoint of using life insurance?
We think, well, not every solution is always the right solution for every given
Right.
circumstance. Let's remember that. By the way, this is for educational purposes only, right? One of those deals. Um, but what I would say,
Got the
what
disclaimers
I would,
out.
yeah, exactly. But what I would say is, in most cases, I think insurance makes a lot of sense if you're thinking about taxes, which you should be as an entrepreneur, by the way, or as an investor. I think it makes a lot of sense because of the fact that on an ongoing basis, just like in a Roth, you don't have to pay the IRS money on the growth, as an example, on an ongoing basis. And even sometimes when you pull the money out, you don't have to worry about paying taxes. So I think of them kind of being similar. The Roth and life insurance, they're relatively similar, but I think you get a little bit more flexibility with respect to insurance in some cases.
Right. It's true because, like, for example, a Roth can be great, especially if you have something that's a taxable investment
Mm-hmm.
that now can be put in a tax-free environment, right? Which you wouldn't get normally. And that, you see that whether it's in the stock market, because there's zero tax benefits in the stock market.
No.
And you see that even in some real estate too, like if lending, real estate lending, for example, right? Where there's no real tax benefit. But on the flip side, I notice that when I have tax benefits, like if I buy a property, I don't necessarily want to put it into an IRA or maybe even into a Roth because now I lose the additional tax benefits from the real estate. That's where I
Yeah.
might use the life insurance so I get to keep all the tax benefits. Or if I'm going to invest it in my business, well, you can't put IRA money in your business directly, at least.
Yeah.
Anyways, but with the life insurance, I can then use it for my business, still get all the tax benefits of that, right?
That's exactly right. By the way, I think that's outlined in your book. Really, the thought of well being able to retire, et cetera,
Yeah.
for forever, hopefully with a little bit of work, lots of retirement, right? I think that is outlined in your book. Actually, hold on. I'm going to turn the tables. You mind if I turn the tables real quick and ask you a couple questions about your book?
Sure.
Very few people do that when they're a guest. But so,
I
what
know
is
this is the
your? How
benefit
does
of me being the host. I can ask all the questions. I don't have to do anything but ask questions.
what would you say your book taught? I mean, your book's obviously an enjoyable book. It's going to be a bestseller, even though you probably don't want it to be because you got so many things going on, right? But what would you say your book talks about in that regard relative to real estate as it relates to kind of the the insurance component?
Yeah, I think well, kind of what I said there. I mean, one thing that's the benefit of the insurance is that you get to keep all the tax benefits because it's really a tax-free savings account you can use to go and
Mm-hmm.
invest into things like that, right? Whether I'm using it for my business, whether I'm using real estate, or even like oil and gas investments, where you might get some additional tax benefits from that. Same sort of thing. If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. And I might even use it in other places. But for me, I mean, honestly, I just like it because it's a great place to store my cash. I can let
Mm-hmm.
it sit there, protected from lawsuits and creditors. It's, again, like tax free, but it's paying me more than point nothing percent at the bank, so it's kind of like for me a tax free savings account, which we don't really have in the US, that I can access the capital whenever I need it.
Yeah, and for us, that's important because, by the way, vastsolutionsgroup.com is part of a bigger entity, if you will. It's called vastassetdefense.com, which we do tax finance and artificial intelligence on our side, and the other side, asset protection and estate planning. So it's all in one umbrella. And a lot of people don't realize that, asset protection and estate planning is a really big component of a net worth. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest benefits about insurance, life insurance specifically, because it's a very hard asset to get at as far as creditors, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a big thing you just mentioned.
Yeah.
It must be noted. I mean, do you want to work, in whatever 40, 50 years and lose it all because of a lawsuit? Well, having assets in a life insurance policy, it's very difficult to get at.
Yeah, that's true. Because I know when I was on the Ryan Pineda show, he's like, okay, I've had five other infinite bankers on this show. I don't know if I'm really a fan, but they always tell me you can make money in two places at once, and that sounds good and all. Like he's kind of saying like, yeah, I've heard it all before. And then I did mention the asset protection as almost like an oh by the way. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you can do that. Yes, it's a tax-free savings account. You're going to earn way more than point nothing percent. Right now, I'm getting paid 6% tax-free on my money sitting there safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I mentioned asset protection. I'm like, it's protected 100% from from creditors and lawsuits in most states, right? I mean, there's a few states that are exception, but most states, like you said, it's pretty much bulletproof as long as it's in your personal name. And he's like, wait a minute, are you serious? You could do that? He's like, that's the first time I've heard that, and I've had five other guys on this show. I said, well, I would think if somebody has big, a decent amount of assets, that would be a big focus. You'd think they would want that.
And that's a big component. We have a lot of well-heeled people, and again, they don't want to work for whatever 40 years and lose all
Yeah.
the assets. So it makes sense. Hold on. Just like I kind of blew off college and Harvard, the whole deal, you just kind of glossed over Ryan Pineda. Wait a minute. Tell me about that. You're
Tell you
on the
about
show.
Ryan.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that was a great show to be on. I mean, for sure. Ryan's a great guy. I mean, definitely a big on social media and real estate investor and whatnot. And I mean, and we don't always agree. I mean, that's the cool thing about going on shows, right? Like we have different perspectives. I mean, he's
Mm-hmm.
definitely he doesn't believe passive income ever exists and ever will exist. He's like, nah, like it's always active, like no matter what you do. And because he thinks of real estate, like passive real estate is just rentals, right? Which he's right. Isn't always passive. Even if you have a good property manager, you might have to deal with some crap from time to time. But I told him, I was like, well, that's not where I put most of my money. I mean, I do have rentals too. And yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
can give me the occasional headache, not daily, but it does give me, I mean, compared to a business, way less headache, right? But compared to like, if I just put my money with an operator where maybe I'm lending them money or I'm using my money for, even just having be a business partner, but I'm just the financer, they're doing all the work. I'm letting them be the active investor. Then I am a hands-off investor. And I think that's a world that even in his place, because he's so much the active real estate investor, for him,
Mm-hmm.
that was not even a thought that was possible for him.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize you're on the show. That shows how big of a hitter you are. Nice work.
Yeah, it is what it is. You eventually get in the right mastermind rooms, like where I met you. You meet some of the right people too.
Yeah, it's been a good ride. It's been a good ride. I asked a couple questions about your book. I'm going to ask one more question. What
Yeah,
would you what when you wrote your book? What was the goal of your book? Because I just wrote a book, by the way. I should talk about that too here. Modern Millions AI. How to make millions, save millions, protect millions. And the goal of my book was just to. I felt that so few people knew about artificial intelligence, and I wanted to get that name out there so people the word out there that it could help, meaning AI could help with finances. It could lower taxes. That was my goal. I've
yeah.
just felt like the voice had to be heard. What was yours?
Yeah, I mean, with mine, I did not want to write it at all. I think if somebody's been listening to the show long enough, they've heard me talk about not wanting to write a book. But there were several people that did say they wanted something and it like was in writing they could touch and read and reread again versus a podcast where you have to hit rewind. They wanted something that was a little bit more tangible. They can kind of ponder over those words and finally, it was actually one of my best friends. He talked me into it using to the point of your book there, Kenner, using AI. And he says,
Uh,
"Hey, well, why don't we just take, the transcriptions from all these webinars and different podcasts you do, even some of your favorite podcasts, the ones that really encapsulate what you teach, throw them into AI, into Chat GPT and that sort of thing, and start to create a book." And so he did that in the summer of 2024, and then he dropped it. And so I had like hundreds of 100 pages that were just there of like good raw material, but it didn't quite have the heart to it yet. It was just the brain, but not the heart. And so eventually I had, someone I hired to help me write more of my story, get the story part out and integrate it into the book the right way. Cause that's the thing. I'm not a good author in the sense of being
Mm.
a story writer and everything else and making it make sense in a good flowing pattern. So that's what I did. I hired her to kind of help me get it together. And next thing you know, between millions of edits that even some of my team did and things like that, we came out with a book that now is a work optional blueprint.
And think about this. Think what it's going to do. It gives you, credibility. It's going
Yeah,
to get, your thoughts out there and hopefully thousands of people's hands. And hopefully you're going to, that one person who's going to read that book, who knows, maybe you're going to get on CNN or whatever the case is. I don't know,
right.
CNBC or whatever the case is. And then you're going to get your voice out there even to more people. I think that's, as an entrepreneur, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It seems like it's a resource drag, but at the end of the day, I think it makes a lot of sense. And by the way, shameless plug, go to modernmillions.ai or also go to Amazon or your normal bookseller. And please, I'd love people to get the book. If I could get the word out as far as artificial intelligence helping to make money and save money and protect money for people out there, hey, more the merrier.
I was going to ask you about the premise of that book. Like, what's the real story behind modern, shoot, modern millions,
Modernmillions.ai. You know,
modern millions
I
AI. Yeah.
so when I started researching AI ultimately, truly January 1st of 2010. And I said, whoa, this is going to make a big difference. I remember sending out a bunch of invites, and I had an event at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas where I talked about finance, tax, and artificial intelligence. And, I was hoping whatever, I don't know, 300 people would come, 20 people came. AI was that. I mean, no one knew AI at that point, right?
Mhm.
So really what happened was that was the beginning of my AI journey in marrying the two, finance, tax, and artificial intelligence. And what I thought, I knew that I was onto something when I started talking to people who were getting mad at their CPAs, mad at their tax providers, who just couldn't figure out how to use technology to lower their tax liability. Again, I was crazy for a while. People thought I was crazy. I mean, people were thinking it was never going to work, et cetera, et cetera. But now, obviously, it's a big thing. People are thinking about using Chat GPT. People are using Gemini. So the result is, I'm not as crazy. Even my wife thinks I'm crazy. I'm not as crazy as people thought me to be, because now, obviously, this now is a number one bestseller in the entrepreneurship category at Amazon.com. So it worked out. And what I would say is, it's an easy read, and I more than anything, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to use a resource, why not use artificial intelligence to help you get to your end goal, whatever your end goal is? You'll be surprised how easy it is to utilize artificial intelligence to make money, save money, and protect your money.
Totally agree. I mean, I've fought against it for several years, but finally last year I decided to embrace it. And it's amazing how much more productive you can be. It's not about turning your brain off with AI. I've noticed it's about how do you turn your brain on and become more effective and efficient with AI. That's I think the real magic behind it.
100%. And if you can use, artificial intelligence with some of the stuff that you're teaching people, if you will, it'll make a huge difference. Just like I said, the Sigma rate, 14%. I mean, I'm sure that would still be the case for you. If
Yeah.
you're working with someone and helping them as far as technology, et cetera, it'll make them, who knows, that much closer to being able to, again, make millions, save millions, protect millions, all with the use of some of your solutions.
I love it, man. Well, that's exciting stuff. We'll be sure to put that in the show notes so people can get a copy of that book. So thank you so much for doing that. Last question for you. Being the Money Ripples podcast, we talk about creating a ripple effect through people's lives. So, Kenner, what do you feel is your ripple effect that you can create on this planet?
Ooh, I like that. I like that. What's my ripple effect? Um, I want to make it so people can retire and enjoy the lifestyle that they want to enjoy. And it sounds maybe simple, because if you think about it, this is a longer answer to your question that I think you're looking for. All retirement is a long vacation, the longest vacation one's going to ever take. And if I could somehow help in that regard, make allow someone to have the longest vacation and enjoy the lifestyle that they want, then I've done my job.
We're definitely aligned there. I'm always fascinated how many times I ask that question of guests and how much more we have in common, even if we might do completely different things, right? I know ours align a lot more than some of my guests, but yeah, that's an incredible answer. I know there's definitely a lot of people here that want the same thing you want too.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I mean, this has been fun. You're a good guy. You add value to a bunch of people out there. You're, making someone who's a W-2 employee who, who's whatever, maybe even not happy with their job. Then all of a sudden, if you can help them towards retirement, or an entrepreneur, if you could help them, you make them whatever retire and be that much happier. All the more power to you. And obviously, your shows have been around for a while, so you're obviously doing awesome. It's great that our thoughts do align, because I believe that they do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Ken, I appreciate your time today. This has been an awesome show, and really excited to be able to, again, really understand more about how you teach using, AI and everything with what you're doing in the accounting world. So those of you guys want to know how that works, be sure to go find his book. We got that right in the show notes right there. And also too, if you're looking for accounting services, that's exactly what Kenner's company does. So be sure to reach out and get that value that you can get, because again, your guys' lives don't change until you take action. So get off the tracks, start making that move. Guys, make it a wonderful and prosperous week, and we'll see you later.